So good evening, friends, and welcome to the last session. And the second last one has been so interesting that it's challenging to keep you all amused and in a humorous mood. But given whatever limited time we have and the seriousness of the subject, I'd like to start immediately. So, see, our panel is supposed to discuss about the challenges and opportunities in the apparel and footwear accessories sector, which, if I look back only 2 years ago, if somebody would have said that selling apparel online, many people would have said that no way, people want the touch and feel. That's what they want to have, and only then people want to buy. And we all been proven wrong, including myself, that people do buy online. And a lot of apparel is being sold online. But the big question is, how many people can possibly be buying and how many people possibly could be selling online? The amount of surge which we have seen in terms of the brands and the multi-brand outlets which are being launched online in case of apparel, I really got intrigued around a year ago and thought, let me just try to figure out that why is it happening. And when I started talking to some of the people who have gotten in, most of them were not from the apparel industry. Most of them were not from the fashion sector. And all of them were lured into coming into this because they looked at electronics, they looked at some of the hardware products, and they found that the margins were so tight. So then suddenly this increased the scope of their analysis and say that let's look for categories where there are higher margins. And in apparel, they found the real fantastic category which you have gross margins going from 40% to sometimes even 80%, depending on whether you are multiple of 2 or multiple of 5. And I was amazed to see that how bold some of these people are, that not even knowing what apparel industry is, just because there is a high gross margin available, they are jumping into it. And good luck to all of them. I wish good luck to all of them, but I was not really sure that how many of them will be successful in this. So on the panel, we have people who have not only gone into these businesses, but Shyam, who has invested into some of these businesses. So we'll talk about at length. Just to put the things in perspective, in terms of size, when we talk about first ever apparel market, and I don't consider offline, online any differently. I think these are the two channels, various channels, like malls are the new marketplaces, or the exclusive outlets are the new outlets as compared to multi-brand outlets we had, or the browsing facility which is available in most of the apparel stores today, which we take for granted. Till recently, you had to go over the counter and buy it. So it's another way in which the apparel or any product is being sold. But when we look at the overall market, first time ever when I did the market sizing, and there were some numbers available before 99, but any professional organization coming in and doing market sizing back in 99, and I personally did that, and it was 47,500 crores. Many people ask me, where did you come up with that number with? And I had some formula, I had some Excel working at the back, but frankly speaking, it could have an error of 10 to 15 or even 20%, doesn't matter. But that market today has grown from 47,500 just 13 years ago to around 250,000 crores. So it's almost 5 times of where we started from. Sounds like very big number, but you just do simple mathematics, it's not more than 15% per annum growth. With 15% annum, everything doubles every 5 years. Simple compounding. 250,000 crores, and then within that you have 40 to 80% kind of gross margins. I don't blame people getting excited about getting into it. And more so when you look at the global numbers. In India, apparel is still one of the smaller categories. I think 8% of the total transactions which happen online, apparel is only 8% of them. But internationally, you look at it, it's close to around 18%. Some data which I had analyzed, I looked at those numbers, 18%. So still there's a lot of potential. But the big challenge is how to make money. Well, some people have come online and they started buying, and 8% also of a smaller number. It's not like we are selling billions of dollars of worth. But the amount of money you see being spent on marketing and trying to acquire these few customers is humongous. How will anybody ever make money in this? And the kind of discounts being offered. You put that simple Excel sheet together and you see that every transaction people must be losing money, and chances are very little that they'll be able to make money. And that's the question which I have for the panelists. I know their answers, I know I have discussed, and I believe in many of those things, but for your benefit, we'll discuss it all here. Looking at this kind of a situation where you have very large market and growing even faster. So what has happened in this apparel market in India in the last 10-15 years, it's going to happen even faster now, because still so much has to be branded, so much has to go into ready-made. Women's wear is still not branded, still not gone into modern retail as much as menswear had gone. So this growth is going to be even faster. So 250,000 is going to be more than 500,000 in 6 years' time. 5 lakh crores worth of, another 2.5 lakh crores worth of new market is going to come to us. So there is a huge potential. Good gross margins, people are wanting to look better, everybody wants to look fashionable, everybody wants to buy better brands, so why will not? Any kind of a channel which is selling fashion will not do well, and that's what gives me that's why I'm optimistic about even online retailing for the apparel, fashion, accessories, footwear, whatever we have for the lifestyle there. Apparel technically actually means clothing, footwear, jewelry, accessories, all of it. It's not only clothing. So everything to do with apparel, I believe it's going to do extremely well. And now let me go back to the panel and we'll discuss some of these things. And we will discuss it for another 30, 35 minutes and then another 15 minutes for questions. And I hope you will have some. Thank you. So Govind, if we could start with you. You are coming from the garment manufacturing and exports background and have gone into online business and that also into women's wear. So when I look at total apparel market and within that women's wear and within that online, all three I find very, very exciting and you have picked up that opportunity. But what has been why did you pick it up? Why? Exports is a fantastic business. And I know that I've worked with so many garment exporters and I think some of the wealthiest people in this city, at least Gurgaon and Delhi, they all come from the garment exports. You can't? Can you now? Okay, so I have to be more like one of those singers. So anyway, so I'll repeat what I was asking if most of you have not been able to hear that. See, the question which I have is, while the opportunity apparel, women's wear, online, all looks all right. But for somebody like you to garment exports, India does, I think, around $15-16 billion worth of garment exports, and people make a ton of money out of it. Like I said, I've worked with so many garment exporters, and they say that you put up a new factory, and if you're doing okay, less than a year you get your money back, and after that, it's all your money, every year. And you get your money assured, there are no payment issues, there are no discounting issues, there are no challenges there. Why will you then extend into the domestic market and pick up all these challenges? While opportunity, I agree, but huge amount of challenges in terms of building a brand, making sure that customers are happy, right designs there, sell-through issues, discounts which you have to offer. So I'm sure many in the audience will be happy to know or will be keen to learn that why did you pick up this opportunity and what challenges do you see in that?
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for your question, first of all. I think the export business did bring me the opportunity to learn a lot once I got into it. Of course, my father was the one that started export in the early 1980s. Over the period of time, he has established the business well. And I think when I came into the business, he always had the vision that he wanted his sons to do something different, to diversify and to get into the corporate business line. Export, as you say, is definitely something where you put in your money one year and the next year the money is back, but it's not as easy as it sounds. Secondly, I think the monotony of exports was something that really stifled me inside. Me, my father, and my brother, who's also here, we're creative people. We have had the passion of having a private label since forever. We all like clothing. And I think when you say the genre that we chose, which was young women's wear, fast fashion, I think if you see online or offline, there's nobody that really is trying to cater to that particular category and in an efficient manner. It's only the international brands that are there that are, of course, much highly priced than we are right now. And I think the overall experience that for me has been with Shop 19 definitely has been a very learning experience, understanding the internet, understanding how the consumer behaves when he is online. It's a completely different model to when you consider exports, but it provided us with the opportunity not only to diversify, but to grow in another avenue, which we feel in the coming years will definitely have the potential to grow at a much faster rate, at a much higher rate. And I think that it is the industry for tomorrow when it comes to e-commerce and apparel.
So one leading question which comes from this is that, so you have, because you come from that background and you chose to diversify online and you wanted to have your own brand. Do you think it was the best way to have your own, because a lot of other people also have launched their own brands coming from the manufacturing background, but not many have actually gone online. So they have actually set up their stores, and this category, young women's wear, women really like to try out things, they see the fitting and they want to coordinate stuff, look at themselves in the mirror, this fits with that or not, goes with that or not. Any challenges which you have faced because of this particular category specific issue?
I think if you see why we chose online, I think it's very clear. The offline market is not as efficient as the online. The high costs of real estate, the inventory models, the high costs of basic operations, and the limited, you could say, reach of offline stores to the people is one of the main reasons why we chose online. You have the internet, you're sitting in any, we personally, Shop 19 gets orders from cities I've never even heard of in India. I think the challenges definitely are there. The traditional mindset of women is to try the garment and then buy it because of, I don't want to say it in the wrong way, but in India we don't have a particular fit for women in India. We've done a lot of research, a lot of development. It's not the typical European sizing that we do in exports. We have to do, you could say, a PP sample, that's what we call it, a couple of times, try it on different people, and then come up with a basic measurement for Indian women. When you go to shop19.com, we have a size chart clearly telling you these are your bust measurements, these are your waist measurements, and so on and so forth. I think we definitely have to evolve much more than what we have done in the past. It's a 10-month-old company, and we've definitely learned a lot from the customer feedback. Thankfully, Shop 19, through its experience of manufacturing and sizing, has been able to give the customers the right kind of fit. So we've been able to tackle it quite efficiently. Definitely a lot more development to be there on that side, but these are hurdles I think that we will overcome with the coming of time. And I think every industry has its own set of hurdles that it needs to overcome, and these are ours, and we need to really work efficiently on how to handle them.
Thanks, Govind. And Ashish, if I have to come to you, and some of the things which Govind said, big challenge building a private label brand. They had the passion, they had the resources, so they have gone ahead and done it. It's counterintuitive because most of the people would like to sell what is selling offline. That's the easy, and that's what people like Mantra and they are all done. But yes, for the long term, it makes sense to build own brand. But what you are doing is even one step forward, that you are trying to bring in international brands which do not have any offline presence in India, and in many cases they do not have much of a, I would say, equity in the Indian consumer's mind. While there are some brands internationally which without being here also still have equity, but you are bringing in other brands, and that also online. And then what Govind said about the sizing, right, where they have to do a lot of work on the sizing side of it. How are you able to do international brands, lesser known international brands, that also online, where people can't try, people can't fit, and sizing, because certainly is an issue, and I'm sure you are not getting sizes made specifically for Indian consumers. How are you managing all these complexities in your business? You take your time, we have all the time, please.
No, it's... Okay, yeah, can you hear me? Okay, yeah. It's true, there are two ways of going about it when you are addressing labels in India. One is, of course, the private label route. We look at it a little differently. we see India as a very underaddressed market when it comes to branded wear. Even today, most of the brands, I mean, international brands which are present in India are still very small. So I used to live in Paris earlier. I was a venture capitalist, and when I began to study the Indian market, I said, okay, on one side we have the value brands, which are cheap, but Indians have gotten used to it. And on the other hand, we have the luxury brands, which are just very expensive for the common man. What can we do to provide fashionable clothing, but at affordable prices? So that's how we started looking at the Indian market for once. I think one of the best examples I can give you who's done successfully in India is Zara. And that's what we also look at. It's fast fashion. If you see primarily the population online in India today, it's people who are in the late teens, in the 20s. And these people are following trends of fashion across the world. So we said, can we bring these fashion trends from maybe the Europes or the Americas into India at prices which can be affordable? So that's how we started looking at the business. We were very lucky because of our previous jobs and networks. We started addressing or contacting brands who would ideally be interested in India. Now, as mentioned earlier, one of the biggest challenges for a brand when they want to enter India is CapEx. How much do you want to invest? If a brand is investing only in Delhi, Bombay, or maybe let's say Bangalore, already the investment is quite sizable for a population which may not be significant. So we said, let's be a channel which will allow brands to enter India. We can be addressing them on a pan-India scale, providing people with the kind of choice which is available to Westerners, and at the same time, work out a model in terms of how we bring these goods to India, or if they are manufactured locally, source them, so that we can provide the best fashion styles, but at the most attractive cost. We started operations about 8 months ago, and I can tell you that the success has been phenomenal so far. People are really open to trying out new brands. A simple example is if I introduce a brand, I do have to educate my customer, but at the same time, customers are looking it up online, trying to understand what is the value of this brand, and they accept it very fast.
Thanks, Ashish. And see, one of the things which you said that India is underdressed, right? And I think even under-branded for that matter, because a lot of people, even today, we work with a lot of clients who are wanting to get into this business. One of the first questions which we have in mind is that, are there not enough brands already there? The boards ask these questions. There are so many brands because most of the board members are coming from the era where I also come from, where there were hardly any brands. And then you see dozens of brands, it looks like there are too many brands. And then half of the time we have to present to them the case studies where we show them that how many brands exist in markets which are much smaller than India, in terms of number of people at least. Per capita consumption is much higher. So you put all those factors in and still India doesn't have enough brands. And more so in women's wear, certainly there's a huge gap there. So I think there you're absolutely right in terms of seeing the opportunity that people need more brands, and how many iconic brands you can ultimately have. There are only that many. Beyond that, there have to be other brands as well, right? So Shyam, if I can come to you, when, let's say looking at this, when you look at online, you look at e-commerce, when you look at investments, there's so many opportunities. Everything can be done. I think one of the presentations I was looking at, somebody was saying, you put things on this side, and start putting arrows in between, everything can be connected to internet. Do you, from investors' perspective, when you look at this apparel, clothing, footwear, fashion, accessory, which is a high involvement kind of, even though there's data which suggests that internationally is the largest category. In the Indian context, do you agree that this is the opportunity for an online business, or if it is, then as compared to others, I would like to have the perspective as compared to other opportunities. How do you see this?
So that is the question here, as to whether as an entrepreneur or as an investor, you can actually make money selling lifestyle products more generally and apparel, footwear more sort of, specifically. User base going from 10, 12 million to 40, 50 million that year. By later that year, Google was saying we had 100 million users, and the number today is more like 160, 180. Okay? They are all inflated, believe me. And going back to what I was saying, we've had to do a lot of work to figure out where to invest this money. So there's been two aspects of that. One, are there enough people online? If they are, how many of them are actually buying? And if they're buying, what are they buying? And are we making money when we sell something online? So across all four of those dimensions, I might have met about 70 companies which were at some scale. over O11 and the early part of last year. And at the end of the day, there's one conclusion we came to, which is apparel and lifestyle products is the only category you can actually invest in. And now I'll come to the real question you asked me as to why is it of interest in the Indian context to investors. Several reasons. One, when you look at any ecosystem, and as an investor, it's important to understand what are the economics of the ecosystem as it exists today before you introduce any kind of disruption. I'll give you an example. Scrap metal, right? There have been startups that have come up which will take scrap metal, let's just call it e-waste. They'll take it from your office and then they'll extract the gold and platinum out of it and they'll sell it somewhere else for value, right? Now, very soon the scrap dealers realize what you're doing with it. So from saying, please take my scrap away, it goes up to give me 300 rupees a kg, 3,000 rupees a kg. Now there's a real story. One of the guys who manages scrap for a BPO in Gurgaon, the e-waste guys presented his son's wedding a BMW. Okay, that's the story going around in these circles. That's the amount of money that's moving around in these circles. So my point is that as an investor, you got to know how things are working. So in the garment industry, as it turns out, apparel, footwear, one unique characteristic, unlike electronics, etc., is that there are no standardization of pricing. Right? This allows margins to operate in the 24 to 28% range, 24-28% range across footwear, clothing, jewelry, and watches. These are the interesting 4 categories to focus on. So anybody who's selling this offline, you can pretty much do the same thing online, no better. It's a trading business, let's face it. If you're going to sell it for more online, it's just not going to be viable. The only thing you can do is sell it for less. So your gross margin, that is how much it costs you from your supplier, and then what you mark it up and sell it out onto your retail customers, can be no more than 23-24%. Now that still gives you enough wiggle room to offer discounts, etc. But still, that's a game that everybody's playing. But of all the categories, this is the best. Books, there's nothing there. Electronics, highest volumes, nothing there for margins. So across all this, I know it's a long way of answering your question, but it's exactly, this is honestly the only category that's left in terms of being interesting to anybody in the world of e-commerce.
No, I agree, Shyam, that one is that the margin side, and secondly is the proven case studies that how internationally people have managed to, the myths about size and touch and feel and coordination has been removed. And even in India, many customers. But the big question about this, when we look at online, offline together, our job is as consultants to look at the potential market. And we find there is the same bunch of customers, same late teens and late 20s, who have a limited amount of money in their pockets. They are the ones who are online. They are the ones who are in the malls. They are the ones who are jumping from one brand to another in the malls. One brand does very well this season, next season they move to the next one. Because at the end of it, they have limited amount of money which they can spend on. And like I was sharing before we started the panel, that the per capita consumption in India is 1/10 of what is in Europe. And the European brands are here now, same brands wanting to sell as much they are selling in Europe. Obviously, it will be 10 times harder. And they will make it 100 times harder for other people, right? And in case of apparel, globally, if we look at it, one of the phenomena, it's very clear that the brands themselves became retailers. So Zara, Uniqlo, Gap, you look at all of these people, they became retailers themselves. So there's not much room, if you really look at it, for retailers, pure retailers to make money on apparel unless until they are doing huge amount of private label and huge amount of trading margins which they have. So given that part, I'll come back to you. This is the question for you once again, that between own brands and the multi-brand outlets, what do you think is the story there?
So undoubtedly, when it comes down to brands, brands drive traffic, private label drive margins. That's the mantra across most apparel retailers. That holds true for online as well. Now, I will say one thing though, and you asked me earlier about what's special about India. One thing about India is real estate is disproportionately expensive relative to persons per capita sort of buying power in terms of the average basket size online, or the average purchase in a retail store. So what we are looking at now is a country that's so widely spread. There's 100 million households receiving cable and satellite, where people can see Shah Rukh Khan and Katrina Kaif wearing the latest wear. and they want it too. So there's an aspirational audience that dispersed across 21,000 pin codes. Even the most widely spread organized retailer in this country, it's Cafe Coffee Day, by the way, is serving about less than 1/10 of that. So how do you address this unmet need, right? You've got to bring the store to them.
People, while there are customers out there as well, right? And so why not be available? Because you have a great product. At the end of it, you are a brand. So why not be available to the consumers where they are shopping? Because we all agree to it that there's only a certain set of customers who are going online and shopping online. Why are you depriving those consumers to enjoy your brand, as well as I think you are constraining your brand's growth maybe somewhere, or the exposure to the brand, by not making it available to other channels? I'm sure you'll have some reason for that, so please share that with us.
I think the primary reason would be the costs that we incur when you have physical brick and mortar stores. We all know that you need to have the USP. You need to have a USP to sell your product online, to change people's habit of going to a mall, buying it, touching, feeling it, and you're telling them, no, you sit on a computer, you don't have that experience to go with your friends and buy it online. I think one of the reasons why people would come online would be, of course, the pricing, which is much more competitive when you go offline. And again, I think the reach of the brand when you are online is much more, like Mr. Shyam said, that you have 21,000 pin codes to serve, whereas Cafe Coffee Day couldn't serve, I think, 1/10 of that. So the reach that the internet provides you, and of course the price factors and the cost factors and the efficiency and the data analytics that the internet can provide you, outweigh the reasons why you would go offline. That's the main reason.
See, I agree to what you said to some extent, but at the same time, I think while it's early days for online brands, only pure online brands, but clearly the offline brands, even with their very limited penetration, there are some brands which are doing hundreds of crores worth of sales. So it has taken them a few years, but it's not that it's just because they were there for that many years, they were reached that sale. It's not organic or natural which will happen. But I agree with what you said, that these are reasons why you are not going offline. But somewhere I do feel that multi-channel strategy could be the better way to go. So we have another 10 minutes to go. I think we'll open it for the questions if people have any questions there. So anyone has any questions, we can take it now and before we close the session. Anybody? No questions. I think it's been, maybe we have been very lucid and we have touched upon everything possible there. So yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
I was just wanting to know how you're managing to attract traffic. How are you engaging? How are you getting your customers if you haven't got the shops in the forefront in the malls to understand your branding in the first place? Like the gentleman next to you, he's still bringing brands from overseas. There's people like me. There's other students that study abroad that come across these brands. But as in your case, they might not have come across your brand. How are you getting out to these people?
I think, like we do with Shop 19, the primary method is, of course, to advertise your brand in the initial stages. But when it comes to true word of mouth, to bring people onto your site, I think you really need to have more of customer engagement. You need to focus on customer delight. For example, when it comes to our own portal, I think we've been really successful with our CRM, which has a very different and a unique way of handling customers that calls to ask various questions about whether they would buy a particular product for a particular reason and how they would be answered in that manner. Even if you see our social channels, which are Facebook and Twitter, we have a, you could say, one-on-one engagement with each and every customer that does post on our particular page. So I think it's the entire experience that you need to give the customer. The initial part is very difficult to bring the customer, have him come online, go through your catalog, make him transact. But I think the most important part would be then to make sure that he keeps coming back, is why we need to then focus on these other particular processes, which will definitely help you increase the word of mouth. And especially with women, I think women have this way of talking to each other. They want to know what their friends are wearing. They want to know what she's wearing and where she got it from. So I think with our particular label, we have a very good, strong word of mouth, which has helped us in increasing our popularity amongst the general genre that we are targeting. And I think our services, which we are definitely well known of, we're getting to now become popular because of. So that would be the answer. I hope that's enough. Sir?
Yeah, hi. This is for Mr. Sahani. Hi, my name is Kunal. We have seen examples of brands which have essentially not been retailers in the offline space and have made certain amount of success or, you know, a space for themselves. And maybe then have gradually become retailers as well, further down, you know, going vertical. Such has not been, you know, some examples which have come up in the online space. Any particular reason for this, that there are no brands which are pure brands but don't wear the hat of retailers also in the online space?
See, there are some. I can come up with a couple of names, but see, these are all very early days. So when, let's say, there were multi-brand outlets available on the offline space, so somebody could launch a brand, go to these multi-brand outlet chains, or not even chains, but single stores also, through distributors, and become a brand without ever having invested even a penny into retail.
Yeah.
In case of online space, because online retailer themselves are a new phenomena. So initially, obviously, they would like to have the brands which bring traffic to them, right? Rather than giving a chance to a completely new brand. But I believe on Fashion and You, there are few brands which are selling, which are not available anywhere else. And because these brands are somewhere on the larger sizes, somewhere it is to do with a particular kind of a finish or product, I would say the fad kind of brands which are coming in there, but that shows the trend that somewhere people will. Let's say in case of Govind, he had the resources to set up his own stores and wait it out. There will be many brands with people who have good sense of design, they want to come up with merchandise, but have no idea or no resources to go online on their own. Exactly. They will go to these multi-brand outlets. So, but the other side of it is, where the resistance will come from is that the online retailers themselves, they see that, okay, somebody else can do it, not a brand which is known. So like Mantra, they will like to do more of their own private label. We can hire a team of merchandisers, they are the funding. So if somebody can think of a name and think of a category which they need to address, that will happen. But I think this in-between thing is beginning to happen. And if online retailers, multi-brand retailers, they survive and they thrive, I think this will give opportunity for some brands to come in without having their direct online presence, just distribute it to online retailers. But even there, I would say that people should not try to be purists just for the sake of being purists. They should, if you have a brand, you have to distribute. Why only online retailers? Give it to the offline retailers as well. There's a huge amount of consumption which is happening there, huge amount of purchasing which is happening there. So again, just to prove a point that, oh, I'm a pure online distributed brand, somebody may do it, but I think that shouldn't be the long-term strategy. One has to start from somewhere. So you can start with that, but I think ultimately the brand should be channel agnostic.
I'm pushing an endeavor where we're trying to you know, create a brand with certain values, trying to solve a problem, but that's a separate story. But to create a brand, and just a brand, a fantastic product, but trying to create a market piggybacking on the available marketplaces like a Myntra or a Jabong, on so on and so forth. So do you think there's a possibility of, in this business?
I personally think yes, big opportunity. I personally think so, and I think more people should be creating brands rather than trying to become retailers. Retail is an extremely, extremely, extremely difficult business, while brands are, if not equally difficult, but they are as difficult, I would say, if not more, but they are more interesting businesses. And globally, if you look at it, the value is created by the brands, not by the retailers. Retailing is a trading business.
True.
Yes, you want to trade in your own brand, that's a different story. You are going one step ahead and doing it. And unless until you see a serious reason, hugely extra margin, or hugely extra valuation being created, one should not do that. But I think creating brands is the real business. That's what people should try to do. That's what people should focus on if they believe in it. But not everybody is as creative, passionate, or has the ideas to do that, or even the resources. But I think there are enough channels available and not enough brands are being created. People are looking for easy options. They just want to set up a shop, whether online or offline, trade on the products which people are putting hard effort and doing it. But better brands going towards retail will be very, very detrimental to even the consumers, because we'll not see better products, we'll not see better brands, we'll not see competition. It's the same thing. Don't buy from there, buy from here, I'll give you cheaper. I'll give you better air conditioning. I'll give you faster checkout online. That's not something at the end of it. What matters is the product. What matters is the design. What matters is the concept itself. Because there will be, we are still talking products and the brand, but there are products which don't even exist. If everybody will start to become a retailer, new products will never come into being.
Yeah.
So I would certainly push the idea of becoming a brand to as many people as I could.
Okay, thanks.
Add on to one point that, that yes, absolutely, you should create a brand and you should try to look for as many touch points possible, because when your brand is seen across multiple places, that's only when brand recall comes and people start recognizing you as a serious player. But at the same time, one thing which is very important for a young brand is positioning. You need to make sure that you are seen in the right places. So that just because you're a nobody does not mean you have to be present everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah,
Make
true.
sure that you are
The context is right.
So yeah, exactly. You should be placed next to a brand which you aspire to be.
True.
It's only when you rub shoulders next to similar kind of brands that you will climb the ladder and be looked up with the same kind of respect.
Which is exactly what a brand would do when he goes out in an offline space. I mean, if I go to a mall as a brand, I would not like to be next to a store which is not my contemporary.
Absolutely. So, I've lived in Paris for many years, and I can tell you there are a lot of small couture brands in France who are probably not known outside France, but in France they can command a value as high as a Gucci, just because their positioning or their store placement is actually right next to one. So people look at them with the same kind of respect and are willing to pay top dollar for that.
Thanks a lot.
So thank you friends, thanks for being patient and staying with us. I thank my panelists, Shyam, Govind, Ashish, all of you. Thank you very much.